from the News Channel 5 network. This is Titans Tuesday.
We are indeed happy to have you with us tonight, everybody, on this Tuesday. I am Hope Hines, and this is Titans Tuesday. You know what we do on Tuesday nights? We talk about your Tennessee Titans, 12-1. What a roll they're on right now. They've already locked up, of course, the AFC South Championship. They have a first-round bye. They would, and a playoff game right here. They would like to have home field advantage the entire way through the playoffs, all the way to Tampa Bay, they hope. Our program tonight, of course, is we'll have Jeff Fisher, whose press conference was yesterday. We'll have that press conference for you in its entirety. We'll hear from strong safety Chris Hope and his thoughts on the upcoming game against the Houston Texans, and we will be taking your phone calls, of course. Now, first up, we have Dr. Trent Nestler with us. He is from Baptist Sports Medicine. We'll be talking to the good doctor here in just a few moments about something I think you'll find very fascinating and interesting. Doctor, how are you, sir?
Great. Thank you.
Good to have you here with Baptist Sports Medicine. Your actual title is Managing Director?
Yes.
Of Baptist Sports Medicine.
Correct.
So you're managing and directing a lot of things that's happening over there, right?
Yes.
Your primary emphasis, I should say, on research, and would you call it research and development, or just research?
Research, rehabilitation, and managing our athletic medicine.
Okay. All right. And do you have a special emphasis on concussions? Is that something that you do a lot of work on?
We do. We actually launched a concussion program this year that is very exciting. We are actually one of 2 programs in the country that actually has a concussion rehab program, which is new, it's innovative, and we're having some great results with it.
So, let me make sure I do this. I want to make sure that everybody knows that the good doctor is brought to us by Baptist Sports Medicine. I know that we talked about sports medicine in any event, Baptist Sports Medicine, but Dr. Nestler is here on behalf of Baptist Sports Medicine. So concussion, is that an easy thing to diagnose? I mean, I guess it's not that difficult. If a kid or a person's hit in the head and they are a little bit woozy or stupid acting, you know they got a concussion.
Well, in most of our sports and most of our teams, we have a physician that sits on the sideline along with our athletic training team. As a part of our concussion program, we're doing this in conjunction with one of our physician groups, and we're providing our schools with a free baseline testing. So we have a baseline measurement which to compare them against if we believe that they have suffered a concussion.
And how do you, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you,
Sure.
but how do you test someone for a concussion? Do you ask me questions, or do you, like a policeman who stops someone for DUI, look at my finger and do all kind of things like that?
Right. There's a baseline assessment that's done on the field. That's done both in conjunction with our athletic trainer as well as our online physician. And then for the concussion program, they're then sent to our neurosurgeon where they have the impact test that's done, and then we compare that to their baseline measurements.
So there are numbers that this person should line up with to know that they're okay or they're way over the top or whatever the case may be.
And we compare that to their baseline assessment. And that's the important part, because we get their initial assessment to see where they're normally at, and then compare that after they're concussed.
So what are we talking about when we say someone has a concussion? What has happened?
Well, typically there is the initial trauma, and then the brain goes through a coup and a counter coup injury, or where the brain contacts the front of the skull and then contacts the back of the skull.
It never can be from left to right?
It can be from left to right. It can be forwards and backwards. It can be diagonal. Whatever direction it is.
Kind of like jelly in a bowl, kind of a little bit. Yeah, I mean, your head. I mean, when it hits like that, it just kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is your brain encased in fluid, or?
It's encased in a membrane that is very sensitive to hard jarrings like that. Okay. Everybody's going to present a little bit differently. The severity of the concussion is going to depend on athlete to athlete, depend on the sports that they're involved in, and again, we have that baseline assessment that we can then compare them to. If after they suffer a concussion.
If I have a concussion, does that mean I have slightly or severely bruised my brain? Is bruise a correct word or not?
bruised or a mild trauma, or and again, it's really going to depend on exactly the mechanism of injury, what exactly happened, and then also the only way to really diagnose that is to go to a neurosurgeon. Or
then how does it heal? How does it heal itself? What do you do to help it heal?
Well, and that's the interesting part, because our concussion rehab program, basically what happens is once the athlete has suffered a concussion, they go to our neurosurgeon, they have a follow-up impact exam. The physician will then determine what stage of the rehab program, it's a 5-stage rehab program, will determine based on their results what part of the program that they're going to start in. Is that a phase 1? Phase 1 being an athlete who's suffered a pretty severe concussion is really going to start at a very low baseline, versus a phase 5 where that athlete's going to go back. It's going to be much more cardio is going to be involved, and much more resistance training is going to be involved. So basically what we do is we take that athlete through all 5 phases of this program, trying to expedite their return to sport, and more importantly, the safe return to sport.
Depending upon the severity of the concussion, are these sometimes permanent?
Yeah, well, you know,
I mean, permanent damage to some degree?
There is those that do. You know, and we were talking earlier about an individual who had suffered multiple concussions. Will that individual ever return to baseline? I don't know. It's a fairly young individual, and you know there are certain parts of the brain that keep developing up to the age of 25. Will that ever recover? It's hard to say. You know, I don't know. I think we are learning more about brain function. I think we're learning more about concussions as time goes on. It's hard to say, will that ever, you know, completely heal?
Yeah. Note the research. That's the reason you guys are doing all this research, trying to help, trying to find out. I know the National Football League is heavy into this now. They do things before the season begins. I think exactly what you're talking about. Test these guys to see where they are. Even I think the ones that have never had a concussion, they want you to be tested so that when you do have a concussion, you can go back to the numbers that were pre-concussion and compare.
Right.
That kind of
exactly, because after a concussion, and depending on the severity of the concussion, those numbers are going to vary a lot. Whether it's how you process numbers or critical thinking. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects that are evaluated by that.
Now, this is not the only thing you guys do. What else are you involved in?
Well, we're involved in a really exciting research project right now, looking at pre-screening of athletes to try to predict those that are more susceptible to athletic injuries.
Wow.
Yeah, pretty amazing stuff.
So do you put them through a series of tests to test the physicality of the body?
Basically,
or joints or muscles or bones or whatever?
Yeah, basically what we found through the research is that for example, ACL injuries. For those that suffer ACL injuries, there are typical movement patterns that they'll demonstrate for a non-contact ACL injury. So what we're trying to do is to evaluate certain movement patterns, and can we assess that as a part of the physical? Because what we know is that those movement patterns are associated with certain weaknesses. Then if we can identify those individuals with those movement patterns, can we develop an exercise program to prevent those injuries? Is
there such a thing as testing an individual and saying to me, Hope, after you've done this test, and I'll be, 15, 18, 20, whatever I may be, we've determined that you are or could be highly susceptible to knee injuries. You could look at my makeup right now and tell me that that might be a possibility. Right? I mean, is that something?
We would take you through a series of 5 to 10 different movements, take a look at how you're going through those movements, and if you demonstrate certain movement patterns, it tells us where your weaknesses are.
Okay.
Then we can develop an exercise program to address those weaknesses.
Wow. Well, I would think that would be great news for high schools, colleges, even the pros.
Absolutely.
To say that this person has a tendency for this. Now let's, in the course of the weight room and work out and exercise and all of that, and training camp and everything else, let's make sure we work on this part of the body, because this is where you are susceptible susceptible to be injured.
Right. Well, and there are actual pro teams that are doing that now.
Right.
There's
Getting pretty specialized in it.
It is. There's a gentleman in Tempe, Arizona, named Mark Verstegen, who's got a wonderful program that they just do that for the professional athlete. The really cool piece of that is that not only do you strengthen to prevent injury, but you also improve athletic performance.
Are we going to one day come up with a $6 million man?
Maybe.
You remember the program?
Yes, I
$6
do.
million. I mean, you know, this guy was, of course, made of all kinds of electronic things, but you know, it sounds like we're just really getting a grip. Of course, I know there's a long way to go in a lot of areas, concussion being one thing, and that sort of thing. But
it's a lot more scientific today.
Yeah, exactly.
Than when I was in school.
Oh, well, absolutely. I mean, it's like the electronic era. It's like the internet. You know, what's happening today, 6 months from now is really going to be pretty obsolete, from PlayStation to everything else that you want to talk about. Anything else you guys doing that would be exciting for us to know about, or when we think of Baptist Sports Medicine, we think, yeah, these guys are really on top of it.
Well, I will tell you, we are in the development of several pretty cool programs. And
do you need people to volunteer for anything?
Absolutely.
Do you?
Absolutely.
Do you really?
Yes,
Okay,
we do.
good.
We are actually, with our research project, we are 2 years into 3 years. Our initial goal was to hit about 800 to 1,000 athletes. So we are always looking for schools to participate in that.
So you want schools, not individuals necessarily,
Schools.
to call you? Okay.
Yeah.
So schools should get in
high
touch with you?
schools, colleges.
be a part
This
of
is
this
a
research.
really exciting project,
Yeah.
and it's actually we've been getting a lot of press from it because of the implications that it could have for the high school and the collegiate athlete.
Doctor, it's been interesting talking with you.
Great.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much for having
It's
me.
always a pleasure. Come back and see us anytime.
Thank you very much.
And he is, by the way, a Titan fan, and you are from Phoenix, Arizona?
Yes, sir.
So you're a Cardinal fan too, I guess?
Yes,
too.
I am now.
Absolutely, you are now, exactly. All right. Dr. Trent Nestler on behalf of Baptist Sports Medicine. We'll take a break. We'll come back and continue with Titans Tuesday on this Tuesday, everybody, right after this.
Titans Tuesday, brought to you by Baptist Sports Medicine.
It's time to put an end to living on the sideline. With joint replacement, the experts at St. Thomas Health Services can get armchair athletes into the game.
Honey, what are you doing? Please don't do this to me.
Life isn't a spectator sport, so jump back in. Visit sths.com.